Hi everyone, George here from Locked On Art, and welcome to the fourth and final part in my Dragon Models Tiger 1 late production build. In this video, I will be making up the figures for the diorama and the diorama itself, and also the complete painting and weathering process, which is my favourite part of any build. What I would like to get into first is making up the figures, and then I can move on to the diorama itself. So in order for this figure to fit on the tank, I'm going to have to alter this arm here, straighten it out and bring it forward a bit so his hand rests about there. I've already moved this arm back and flattened out his hand a wee bit so he rests on the mantlet. I've straightened his arm out with some putty, and I'll leave that overnight before I sand it and finish it off. In the meantime, I can move on with the other figures. With the photographer, I think I'll leave the head on the stand and fully paint it before I put it on. So this arm now is fully cured. Now I'll be able to sand it and get it into shape. So here is the reshaped arm, and I've removed a few of the creases in the forearm there just to make it look more natural. And just like with the previous figure, I'll leave his head off for now, just for ease of painting. So from this set of figures, I will only need 3 crewmen and 1 commander. Now, since I'm using a different head with this figure, I'm just going to put a little bit of putty in there just to fill that gap. So I think what I'll do now is I'll just do a little mock-up of the diorama just to see how everything fits together. Sort of the story I have behind this is the crew have stopped to stock up on ammunition, and the German propaganda machine have come out to photograph Michael Wittmann. The Knight's Cross with oak leaves. While it's being photographed, the crew might have had a bit of a rest while that's going on. So I'm going to have a few ammo boxes and shells around the place. Michael Wittmann's up here getting his photo taken. And I have a German motorcycle that I've been working on. And I thought it would be a nice addition for the photographer to have used to come out. So I'll be parking that up somewhere around here. So yeah, that's sort of basically what I'm going for. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make up some putty, and that's going to form the ground of the diorama. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark out where the tiger's tracks have been. Just using a little bit of spare track just to push into the putty. I'm just going to remove a portion of the ground here where the tank is sitting, just to simulate that it's sunken into the ground a little bit. I just want to get some basic earth tones and colours on there before I start putting any grass or foliage on top. So what I have here is a variety of grasses and some shrubs and foliage and some medium gravel. I'm just going to start placing those around the diorama until I get the desired result. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simulate the churned up earth left by the tiger's tracks. I've just got a bit of a mixture of acrylic resin and some fibre cuttings and a bit of gravel in there as well. And I've got some earth pigments. So now that the diorama base is complete, I can move on to priming and painting the main tiger tank, also the figures and the motorcycle. So I'm going to use AK Interactive's Dunkel Gelb as the base coat for the tiger and the motorcycle, and I will also use that for the base of my post shading. So I'm now going to apply the two-tone camouflage with RAL 6003 olive green and RAL 8017 red brown. This next step is just to give a bit of variation to the base colour and to simulate some top coat erosion. goal of this step is to keep it quite subtle, but also bringing some life and a bit of depth to the base coat. At this stage, I will apply a clear gloss coat to the entire model before and after I apply the decals. After placing the decal, I brush over it with a little bit of this Microsol. It just softens the decal, sort of melts it a little bit, just to help it adhere to the model, especially here with the Zimmerit, and it helps it to get rid of that little clear sheen it has around the outside of the decal, just giving it more of a realistic look. So I've just applied a pin wash to the entire model. Now I will apply some weather and rust streaks to the tank. Just with the underside of the vehicle, I wanted quite a speckled look, mixing in the dark colours and the dirt, more of a grey on the sides. With the tracks and the exposed metal parts, I'm going to be using some pigment washes. I have some black smoke, a light rust and a standard rust. I'm just going to alternate between the different colours until I have covered the entire tracks. So now that the rust washes have dried and been set in place with some spirits, I'm going to do a heavy dry brushing with some gunmetal and then highlights with steel. And I'll just give the whole thing a final coat of black wash. Just to bring back some of those details. I made up some of the same mixture that I used for the diorama base, and I'll just be placing that onto the tracks. Now for the figures themselves, I won't go into too much detail about painting them, but what I can show you is the process I used and the colours I used for the camouflage. So I used the Vallejo model colour range. It was a tan yellow for the base coat, and for the first part of the camouflage I used the German bright green, the German black brown, and the salmon rose. Then for the second part of the camouflage, the dots, I used the German bright green again, the salmon rose, the black brown, and I also used a German light brown. And then this one here is just finished with the shading. For the photographer, I just copied him straight from the box, and the Michael Wittmann figure, I just used a few different shades of black. Okay, so now it's time for the part you've all been waiting for. All the parts of the model are complete, and now it is time for the final assembly. We can't forget the bucket. So here is the finished tank, and I have to say this is the most technically challenging model I've made so far. Everywhere you look is covered in fine detail, and I'm really happy with the camouflage scheme I've used. It's nice and light, which shows up all of the scratches and the dirt and the grime. Like I said, the model's not really for beginners, but if you're up for a challenge and you're wanting one of the best versions of the Tigers out there, then this is definitely the model for you. So with the figures done, everything is finally ready to go onto the diorama base. So I've inserted the base back into the frame, and now I just have to add all the parts. So that is the diorama complete. Inspired by the photos that were taken of Michael Wittmann and his crew in May 1944, the diorama really frames the tank nicely. and gives you a good sense of scale and perspective of just how large the Tiger One really was. And the figures just finish it off nicely. I've really enjoyed the whole process of the build, and the figures and the base were a relatively easy addition. I hope you have enjoyed watching this series, and if you would like to see more, then feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, as I have more build videos coming. If you would like to head on over and follow me on Instagram, I post regular update photos of builds and other projects before they hit YouTube. And until next time, thanks very much for watching.